हाँ, so Tarun, I have a medical condition. It's called paralysis by analysis. तो मेरे पास आइडिया
हाँ.
बहुत सारे मेरे को लगता है वो होता है ना कि if I had a penny for each idea I've had, I would still be a beggar. Actually, इतने भी आइडियाज नहीं है, बट बहुत टाइम से कोशिश कर रहे हैं कुछ करें. एंड देन आई वाज लाइक चलो पॉडकास्ट स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. इट्स लाइक थेरेपी फॉर मी. तो आपसे बात करके आई एम लाइक कि भाई पीपल हु एक्चुअली डन, उनसे बात करके देखते हैं
Right.
कि उन्होंने कैसे
Right.
किया एंड उनका कैसे रहा. So that's why हमने सोचा तरुण से स्टार्ट करते हैं and then we'll talk to other people as well. So thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming.
Great. Thanks for having me.
So Tarun, before we get into the enterprise that you did and the startup that you built and what were the learnings etc. ऐसा करते हैं ना, let's talk about what led to that. तो आपने before you started your thing, आपकी बहुत interesting background है. You have your own professional background as well and आपका एक family background भी है, and I think वो दोनों मिलके ये startup का जन्म हुआ था. तो what's the story there?
I mean, I had a 6-7 year professional experience after IMB. I was in ICICI Venture Private Equity Fund in Bombay, almost a year and a half, pushing 2 years. And then my elder sister got married in Delhi, and my mother didn't want to move to Bombay. So I moved back to Delhi. Then I got hired in Delhi. Those days were very, sort of the heydays of Indian private equity investing. ICICI Venture was the breeding ground and sort of spot where all the big funds were picking from. So that was a good situation to be in. So DE Shaw was entering India. I joined that organization. Spent almost 5 years in DE Shaw, again a private equity fund. Around 2010, we had exited our biggest positions. And I had told my CEO that, I want to get my hands dirty in any way. So in 2010 itself. But basically we negotiated and I said, okay, I'll give it one more year because there was one more exit that we wanted to do, which didn't happen. We were trying to IPO a company. But then the next year I told them that, there are these issues in my family business. My dad actually had passed away a while ago, and the business that he had left behind was an asset in North India, which was not doing well. But things had reached a stage where, it was gradually becoming a managed decline, and I was not really looking after it. I'm the only sort of person who should have been looking after it. So there were different members of the family, but when the main driver is not driving it, then the asset anyway had its own fortune. It wasn't doing well for almost a decade and a half. So that's when I quit DE Shaw, and the first problem at hand was turning around my family business, which was not doing well. So between then and now, so I got into hospitality because of this hangover of the family business, which needed to be looked after. So for the first 3.5 years, there was a lot of effort that went into.
But आपने कभी ये सोचा नहीं? कभी आपने यही सोचा कि and this is a problem that a lot of people have, right? कि there is a professional path and there is a family business path, and at some point of time, one has to decide.
So business was always something that I wanted to do. Professional career was a little detour, which kept getting longer and longer. It ended up being 6-7 years because one good thing led to the other. Good college, then good first job, then great second job, financially satisfying. I could buy a house in Delhi, good incentives, great exposure. I had ability to travel internationally, look at large deals, evaluate so many sectors, meet so many entrepreneurs, famous people. So things were going great. But then I realized कीड़ा तो था ही, करना तो कुछ है ही कुछ. So वहीं से फिर when I realized now I think I know enough, so I thought let me just go back and pursue what I initially wanted to do.
But okay, so then you shifted to Jubo. एक तो ये नाम कहाँ से आया? ये आपने नाम ढूंढा कैसे है? ये Jubo कहाँ क्या है?
I've been asked this question so many times. It wasn't a great choice. So actually, I wish I had spent more time diligencing other options. But we started with a name which was called Flush Rooms.
Okay.
Then we
Jubo is better. Jubo is better.
So we said, this is becoming toilet. Toilet humor ho raha hai, and it's got rooms in it. And rooms, other people in this market, at least in hotel tech, everyone has the word rooms or rev or gain or something. So we thought let's go for a name which sounds, which can be basically doesn't sound Indian first of all. So you thought Jubo has a Scandinavian ring to it. And there is a village in Norway called Jubo.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah.
Okay.
But so we said, it doesn't sound Indian first of all. This was an insight we got from the SME market, early traction. It sounds non-Indian. It's not one of Mera Kamra, my key, Mera Sasta something, blah blah. Apna ye, apna wo. So we thought,
Hindi and English wala jo hota
my
hai.
this, my that, my guest house, something like that. So we said, let's not do that. Let's do a name which can transcend to anything. It can basically be extended. It's a short name, so SEO, etc., domain names. There were little instances of cyber squatting happening, and would be easy to pick up. Is a single syllable in a way, but we could have left it at JUBO. We added the D because we saw there was the backend tech stack included a language called Django. DJNGO. So we said, let's add the D, man. It sounds cool. Django, Jubo.
नहीं, it's a good name. I like the name. In fact,
आज तक लोग हमें फोन करते हैं, सर डीजूबो से बोल रहे हैं, डीजूबो से.
हाँ,
डीजूबो से बोल.
हाँ, बिकॉज वो ये ना अपने इंटरनेशनल नाम रखा तो इंडियन सेंसिबिलिटीज से तो मिलना ही पड़ेगा इंटरनेशनल नाम को. ओके, बट ये इनसाइट आया. ओके, बिफोर वी टॉक अबाउट द इनसाइट, व्हाट डज जुबो डू?
So when I was running operations of the property that I was turning around hands-on, so I realized that most of the impact that we saw happen from a profitability perspective happened because of small nuances and changes and improvements we were doing in our distribution and sales desk management and pricing, and a great focus on reputation. I mean, it didn't really which GM, who am I hiring, that has, I would say, very low impact as compared to the decisions we were making around how are we distributing, how are we represented online, what is our pricing, what are people saying, writing online about us, and what pictures, number of pictures, videos, how are we acquiring customers, what are we doing for direct acquisition, what are we doing, what is the meta search strategy, etc., etc. Are we handling incoming calls better? Are we retargeting people, reaching our website better through digital retargeting? So these small spends and small nuances were giving us disproportionate results, and those results sometimes were running into lakhs for a year for small spends. So then we realized that and travel was hot, long tail hotels was hottest back in those days.
And you were trying to figure out ki boss, there are fragmented solutions, but the hotel owner does not want to deal with fragmented solutions. So let me build one 360-degree solution, which caters to everything. And I think, if I'm correct, you were like, ki boss, what do you call it? The sales management is the primary thing that an owner really cares about. So let's focus on that.
Yeah.
Was that the insight?
Yeah, that was the MVP. So, जो property में sales desk manage करता है ना, उस person का the pain point is such that his problem statement is that he's getting phone calls, emails throughout the day for any day in the future, and for him to keep his online, even if he's using a channel manager, in sync all the time is a very tedious task. So think of it this way, that if I'm a hotel and I have 2 categories of rooms and I want to change my price from 4,000 for this room to 5,000, and I have 9 places to push it at. Now, one way is that every OTA gives their own extranet, so you log in and you make it 5,000 for tomorrow everywhere. Okay. And once that 2 is sold, then you have to make it 1 everywhere. If that 2 is sold offline, then you have to go online and make it 1 everywhere. Because otherwise you will sell 2 online suddenly late night, and then you'll have 1 extra guy. So to solve that, they give APIs so that channel managers can integrate that API on their dashboard and give a single place by which you can change that 2 to 1 or that 4,000 to 5,000 to a single place. But what we were solving was that why should you even make we were solving for inventory first. So we said rate changes are less frequent, inventory changes are hourly practically.
True.
We said that why should someone change inventory every hour? At the end of the day, you are selling more offline. So your offline, what's happening on your CRS or your property should automatically update. So we were solving CRS first. The channel manager aggregates all these APIs, creates a single API which you can then use to for just pushing inventory to one place, and that one place then pushes it to 10 different or 100 different
And you
places.
integrated Channel Manager and CRS.
So they were either full PMSs, which were giving you the entire check-in to checkout journey, which require a lot of feature sets to be built, accounting वगैरह सब कुछ बहुत सारा कुछ build करना है. या फिर you give a simple CRS, a custom centralized reservation system, what we call it, which caters to the basic operation requirements of a long tail hotelier, plus gives them fully powered distribution technology. And that was the sweet spot where you don't go very deep and make a PMS for the evolved guy. You make a very basic operations management, property management system. It works for the long tail guy, but his his distribution management is very savvy. So he's connected to hundreds of OTAs. The sync is real time. Pricing can be made dynamic. Stuff like that. So and single interface control and all of that. So.
एक तो आई थिंक आपका ये था कि यू वर स्क्रैचिंग योर ओन इच. जो आपने सॉल्यूशंस अपने लिए बिल्ड किए वो आपने बोला कि बॉस दिस सॉल्यूशन इटसेल्फ कैन बी अ मार्केटेबल थिंग, व्हिच इज आई थिंक अ ब्रिलियंट थिंग टू हैपन टू एनी फाउंडर, राइट? कि अगर इफ आई एम सॉल्विंग अ प्रोडक्ट आई वुड बाय, दैट्स द बेस्ट थिंग टू सॉर्ट ऑफ क्रिएट. बट इस दो चीजें ये कि हाउ डिड यू गेट दीज इनसाइट्स? वाज इट जस्ट स्क्रैचिंग योर ओन इच और डिड यू गो आउट एंड like do market research or anything like that? And second, I think, and a related question is कि वही which we were discussing in the beginning, ideas तो बहुत आते हैं. Now how do you convert from an idea to say कि boss मेरे को यही करना है?
Yeah, 2-3 things. I mean, in those days, I read about 2 or 3 acquisitions internationally of products that I was the first user of in India. So there was a company called Boutique, which Booking.com bought for almost 100 million. Then there were other such $100 million Hotel Ninja, again Booking.com bought for 100 million. Then there were B2C startups getting funded in a big way. There's a lot of OTA competition. So because I was sitting inside a property and I was seeing these international products and using many of them, and I was seeing the impact it was creating for me, and I was actually paying top dollars for some of these, I thought I understand these pain points very, very well. And people started pitching me as their star client in some of their investor calls. So there's a competitor of ours for whom I was the star client and I was a part of his investor call. So I said, I understand the pain points pretty well, and I know, and I could visualize the product that is required. I got complete confidence that we can build not just the MVP, but could visualize the entire roadmap forward. So that gave me confidence कि यार ये तो हो जाएगा. The other things that happened was that we did start selling to clients before our first round. In fact, before we even started talking to our eventual investors, we had converted a chain, which was a VC funded chain, where the same investor who had funded them had also funded a company like ours, but that VC chain chose us over their other investee sort of sister company. So that was validation. Then there were other small, clients that were starting to get converted. We realized that customer acquisition cost was interesting, not very, very high. We also saw that we started unfolding. Sales cycles were not that long, and price points to begin with we were low, but then we were starting to see that we could charge more. So these factors sort of started giving us confidence, and in any case, we had spent almost 9 to 12 months testing the product in our property. Then we were seeing significant results of the product in terms of revenue, in terms of revenue enhancement and reduction in cost in terms of number of people required to manage it, and the kind of data that started throwing up.
मेरे को इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा I just wanted to know कि what was that development stage? So as you said, it took 9 to 12 months with using it on your own property. एक तरीके से you were your own first customer and you were doing it for yourself. Once you felt कि हाँ, this is the product which I can market, you develop. So if you could talk a little bit more कि वो development from an idea, how did I go to development, and then how did you build a company around it?
So in the early days, I first of all got in touch with the old school mate, got him on board as a co-founder because he was running a software services company. So I said कि यार ये बनाना है, and his family also has a background in hospitality. So in the sense that his dad and his brother run a few hotels in Missouri. So he understood hospitality. So we
Hmm.
started talking, and then we said, let's start building the MVP at least for our properties. So and we were anyway using other products, and we were seeing hotels around us also starting to use products. And so for the MVP stage, how it started was that basically I used an Excel file and a mockup tool called Balsamiq. Those days, Balsamiq Mockup 3 used to be a free product. These days, there are many new products that you can use. So I used Balsamiq and I used Excel files to create UIs of what this should look like. I'm still so Excel file is a great UI, sort of better than a Sketchpad. If you can, because I am from finance, so I love Excel. So मेरे को Excel में सब चीजें करने में मजा आता है, including UIs. So by default that's the first product I opened. Excel में बनाता था मैं what it should look like, what's the core functionality, what should the analytics dashboard look like, what should the core CRS system look like. So वो सब बनाते थे, dashboard बनाते थे. Then we used to pick up the core function. Then basically all the technical know-how, not from a building coding perspective, but from the way OTAs share data. I had a head start because I was dealing with that with other vendors that I was using in my property. I understood the nuances of OTAs. What is a room night? What is occupancy? What is a base category? What is a room rate? What is add-on? How to deal with it? There are tons of nuances around hospitality which I had gathered around over the last 3 years. How to build it? What is a meta search? So there's a lot of domain knowledge that I had already gathered, which I used to impart frequently to our tech team. So basically, then we hired our eventual CTO as the first employee. Then we got a front-end guy and a back-end guy to system. So there was a 3-people team which started building something, which started out as an Excel file and a Balsamiq mock-up from my side. Then we engaged a UI developer from Bangalore, which I basically Googled and found, and he seemed like a very interesting guy, very, very experienced, and he was a freelancer. He used to charge us $80,000 for 1 month's work, and that used to be like 5 calls in a month, 5 1-hour calls in a month, and every week you should turn around with what he was supposed to. So he had one weekly output to give based on the calls that we had done the previous week. So I think over 2 months, then we froze the UI, at least for the MVP, with his help, and gave the front-end guy the task to start building the UI. For the back-end logic, we started building the functionality over and above the channel management piece first, because we realized that channel managers exist, but the functionality around the centralized reservation system that we need was our core IP, which others weren't doing. We started building that first. For the piece that for just the interface or the connectivity with the important online portals, we used our eventual competitor for whom I was a star client earlier. I used my relationship to get an API from them.
Okay.
For that feed, so that we could get off the ground faster.
But building a SaaS product in the hotel industry for the long tail in India, weren't you scared?
Yeah, I don't know about scared, but when I look back, I'm more risk averse now than I used to be then. Maybe it was the age, or maybe it was a string of successes, or the fact that IIM हो गया, जॉब अच्छी लग गई, दूसरी जॉब अच्छी लग गई, पैसे कमा रहे हैं, घर भी बना लिया है, प्रॉपर्टी टर्न अराउंड कर ली, प्रॉपर्टी भी अच्छा कर रही है. I was like, यार ये तो I can do it, I can do it all. कुछ भी, bring me anything, let's just do it. Passion only. I was like raging with passion, and it was basically a lot more passion than I should. I mean, it shouldn't. Now when I look back, it shouldn't just be passion only. I mean, much more research around market sizing should probably have been done when I look back. So yeah, I mean that was what explains where I wasn't feeling an iota of doubt. So the confidence was coming from the fact that a lot of this stuff was, at least on the product side, was coming intuitively, and it was getting verified because we were finding people who were taking it. We were finding that we were first movers in a way. We were finding clients. Sales was not a big. Our sales numbers still did. Our sales metrics cannot be questioned. So from that perspective, a lot of this was getting validated.
But
even before funding,
the general opinion that I've seen is from like friends, and is building a SaaS product in India and selling it it's even if you're solving the biggest problem that you could possibly find for a client,
Yeah.
कितना लगेगा is the first question, and वो you can मतलब
So if there is a small delta between what you're offering and someone else is offering, then the sensitivity to pricing is very, very high. Someone
True.
with lower pricing can really pull down your pricing in a big way. So while we were demonstrating value, the value itself was also has factors beyond your own product. I mean, the market at large and the players in that market also are a large part of that value. So one example is that if the B2C market for travel is fragmented, then the value of our product is high. But
True.
if once you start seeing consolidation in that market, then the value of our product comes down significantly. And if let's say 60-70% of the people start getting their bookings from one platform, then there would be a large percentage of the market would be getting 90-95% of the booking from that platform. And these platforms would then say, yeah, just use my extranet and give me data and handle the rest like a walk-in and just give an email confirmation or whatever. So it is easy to demonstrate. It is easy to demonstrate because you can show them revenue growth numbers. But because India is a market where it is highly price sensitive, and and to solve the same problem that a tech solution can solve, the way the owner or business owner thinks about this is कि यार ये तो मैं ये काम तो मैं 2 आदमी बिठा के मैं 10,000 का बंदा रख लूंगा, 20,000 का बंदा रख लूंगा, आपको क्यों इतने पैसे देने हैं? वो आपके वाला कंपेटिटर तो मेरे को 2,000 में देता है, तो मैं आपको 5,000 क्यों दूं? वो 4,000 में देता है. So they don't look at value. They look at they try to play it this way, and I guess businesses have to be if they have to play in the Indian SME SaaS market, then they have to be sure that the size of the market is very, very large that they're going after, and the value that they're trying to give is substantial. But then again, between products, I was always choose a revenue product over a cost product. I mean, if I were a Tally, sorry, I'm taking names, but if I were a cost related, if I were a cost focused product, then it's a tougher story to sell.
True.
Although Tally has significant market share, but if I were like a customer, a CRM in the Indian market, or some such cost related product. So because the easiest story to sell them is revenue.
That's if I can solve the revenue portion, then वो तब भी मान जाएंगे. If you're saying कि back office में
कर लेंगे.
cost तो हम वैसे
solve कर लेंगे. मेरे को धंधा लाके दो. Because everyone's problem is revenue.
But did you also consider building a moat? Because this is something which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, to understand कि a business बनाते कैसे हैं, but more importantly उसको protect कैसे करोगे? So assuming Jubo gets the dominant market share, right? How do you protect that? Because as you said, वो delta justify करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है कि मेरा जो competitor है उससे मेरा better है, ये justify करना, क्योंकि people will catch up eventually, right? So how did you envision?
So basically, there are two or three kinds of things that you can build a moat. One is in B2B SaaS. One is network effects, because you can create a marketplace where your product is integrated to so many things that if you don't use this product, then the other business functions that you are not directly catering to will get hampered because they are also reliant on this product. For example, so we launched some Jubo marketplace. We try to create that marketplace, but obviously it needs to be much bigger and wider and stronger. But for example, a cloud telephony product, if it's integrated with our CRS, then and if it has if you can see calls for the last night within the product, you know who called, why is he an existing customer. So if there's a cloud telephony integration, or for example, if your point of sale system is also integrated to the Walmart system for auto ordering stuff, ingredients that the hotel is running out of, or bed sheets or towels, or you're integrated to Tally or Sage or Freshdesk, or any of these ecosystem products which you need, which you are not core to your product, but you need to be integrated to run the entire function. And so one way of building that is to expose your APIs for integrations to other people way early in the journey. This is something we missed out in a big way.
Acha. Could you explain that a little bit?
So if you're basically building anything, first of all, the one advice that I now give people is, instead of trying to go wide and trying to build a wide product, try to identify a small niche and build something very, very deep and solve for other things through integrations. Try to be very, very good at one niche, which can scale globally. So that's one way of building modes. So, for example, a Zapier is integrate. I mean, you would use a Zapier because it integrates.
What's Zapier? Sorry, what is Zapier?
Zapier is this. You want to pull it up on your screen? Zapier is this API, DIY API integration software sort of a thing. So they've created a product which basically integrates your day-to-day workflows in your organization with hundreds of other software companies. So if you are managing a Google Sheet and you want any new entry in the Google Sheet to sort of trigger an event on your accounting software. Let's say you are used to keeping a Excel file for payments. कि इस agent से कितनी payment आ गई है, इससे नहीं आई है. If you create a new agent, give him a new serial number, then you need some software to create an automatic ledger for him on your accounting piece. Then Zapier is a kind of product which does that integration. So many people internationally come and say, do you have API or are you integrated to Zapier, because then I will integrate it to my local accounting software. I don't want you to build an accounting software. So if you want to think about network effects early in B2B SaaS, then one way to do it is to, first of all, build APIs or attributes that you want to expose to the outer world and maintain them frequently, and do it very early in your journey. Because pretty late, because that ensures that other people are using your connectivity to build those connects on their own, and you solve for geography specific nuances, start solving for it without actually building those nuances in-house. So then you can focus on your core product and you can make it stronger while not worry about other things that other products are good at.
So core product, and I think that goes to that lean startup funda also, do one thing really well and then get it to integrate with different apps. So you become like a node, which is very, very important. And that creates some sort of a way. But I don't know if you can create that exclusivity, because I'm thinking of, let's say, a competitor X that comes for your own SaaS product. They would also be able to get those integrations in, right? So
SaaS, unfortunately, because entry barriers are low, the other way to think about this is just good design. So if something, just the fact that WhatsApp is not because WhatsApp has so many functionalities. It's because it is so intuitive and it has cut down feature sets to a bare minimum. And sometimes less is the toughest to build.
True.
Because if you can find that common minimum set of user features which are the common minimum for the largest denominator, and you can engage them in a very intuitive manner so that using your product is a breeze. And anyone can get self-help or easy training on it, then you have a winner on your hands, because then anyone can auto onboard himself and start using it himself.
True.
Right? Many people.
Now let's switch gears for a minute, and I think we get an idea of how, and this is a very intense learning for me, at least, before, like, having a basic knowledge of a space and having key insights into a space. And I think it goes back to the point that you were your own user. Uski wajah se, the insights that you had to the space and what the experience is really, really important in being able to develop a product, especially a SaaS product, because you're really trying to support a business, right? But it also tells me that the business was in a revenue generating business. It's not one of those cost upfront, and it is a cost upfront business, but it's also a revenue cash flow generating business. So why I'm saying this is, just wanted to talk to you about raising money in India. What went behind that? Why did you yourself raise money? And B, which is more important to me, is how should a startup think about raising money?
So there are 2 or 3 ways in which you can, and as an entrepreneur, you always want to scale fast and make a large dent in your universe, whether you want to define it as India or the world, or whichever way you want to slice it. So you always want to grow fast, and you don't want to grow slow. So, but at the same time, if you know that you are not an inventor, but you are someone with domain expertise, and you want to be ahead of the curve in terms of some feature sets, you are always running against time to ensure that your price point is higher than competitors. You have those extra feature sets that no one else has, and you are sort of ensuring that you have enough runway or lead time over other competitors. So you are iterating faster, and for doing all of this, you need funding, because you need a large team to be able to continuously keep doing product development and innovation and product launches
So
and feature launches.
you're trying to out innovate, out execute, and out price competitors. That is
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
basically why I asked this question is and I think we've touched upon this, right? Every SaaS market is not a huge market. It can be a profitable market, but it may or may not be. It's a finite market. Now, when you're dealing with a VC situation, you are basically looking for 100. You are dealing with a person who wants to do 100x, right? 10x, 100x, whatever the numbers are, right? Now, as a standalone business, a SaaS product can be a situation where it's earning good money, good return on equity, right? But it may not be able to give you that 100x return. So, how should a SaaS product startup think about that?
Yes. Yeah. So SaaS businesses many times have specialist investors.
Achha.
And there are SaaS specific investors also globally, and many people look at SaaS as fundamentally not a winner take all market, but a cash generating market which generates good yields also. So for example, if you found a niche where your revenues are stable and you're making 40% margins and they are growing at 10%, you may not get a 100x valuation, but you have a market which is not going away, clients which are not churning away, you are profitable. There is value to that business, even on a cash flow perspective. And if you just do a basic DCF with some random assumptions, there is value that you've created, and that value is can be. I mean, you can sell a business which is stable like that. It's like any cash flow business. So the chances of success are high in terms of an acquisition or the ability to keep generating cash if you're a SaaS business. I'm not sure if the profile of investors who typically invest in B2C and B2B are the same. So they look at SaaS from a different lens. They're not always going for 100x or 1000x, but they're trying to see, can this company out maneuver, basically have a low cost of acquisition, stable MRR, low churn rates, good lifetime value, and can scale in larger markets. So, and the cash that it throws up can be reinvested back into the business to keep making the product stronger. Practically all the nameplate investors have tons of SaaS investments.
Achha.
But the common theme also is that there is a lot of what you hear in the market saying that because the fact that US and Canada are 50% of global SaaS revenues, 51% or whatever of global SaaS revenues, ticket sizes are just a different league. So I have heard investors who've told me that we only invest in teams where at least one guy is sitting in the US. Or if both of them are here, then we'll send one of them to the US to sit there. There are founders who basically, I've heard recently someone say that because I've had an office in the US and I was getting initial traction there, therefore the biggest startups in India were looking at me. I mean, I was able to sell myself better just because I had a US address, and even so that just paints a different picture in the minds of larger Indian people who can players who can pay more to SaaS companies. But the point that I realized about Indian companies focusing on the Indian market for selling the SaaS products is that this market definitely, it's true that this market is a challenge for ticket size, churn rates, and many. I've also recently heard someone say that unless it's an Indian startup which is looking at some B2C angle to their story, that is the only thing that will attract us to put in money in an out-and-out Indian SaaS company. So unless you have a B2C angle to your SaaS play, so if you're working for a retailer, somehow you can increase his revenues and take a commission out of it. That would be a good play, because the India story is a number story.
Revenue story.
And those numbers numbers of people, revenue. So it's a revenue story. So it is tough to get value for selling software in India. So I would recommend all second-time founders, etc., to start looking at and researching the larger markets outside first. And once you have early traction here, then establishing traction here in India would be much easier.
Now, sort of pivoting to that, because that is the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is the pivot to international clients. I know you're present, if I'm correct, in 33 plus countries. And how did that happen? Was it the initial strategy to pivot, or was it कि Indian market के साथ interact किया and we realized कि we have a product, why don't we ship it outside as well? So how did that pivot to international clients happen, and what's the learning from there?
So, obviously, international was always going to be something that we were always trying to throw darts in the air to figure out, which market do we hit, which clients can we convert. So, we never had any guy on our payrolls who was working for us outside. We were always just doing digital marketing, Google spends, and various kinds of ad spends to lead generation. There were various tweaks we did to the website in terms of, sort of showing them different visuals for coming from different geographies. If someone lands up from an Indonesia or a US, then he sees a different sort of journey on the website, so that which engages him further and sort of generates leads better. So various tweaks we did. We tried to not go deep in those markets just to because we sort of had a feeling that the guys who were coming to us with a lot of requirements were asking for the moon, and for delivering those requirements, we would have to basically stop our other roadmap feature item and put the tech team in that direction.
But how do you think about that, right? Because again, वही हमने discuss किया कि अभी dealing with international clients is easier than dealing with Indian clients. It's a much larger market, etc. Every SaaS player in India is very, very attracted to international clients. Now, ये बात भी सच है उतनी कि it does not convert. The product you make for an Indian, for the Indian market does not necessarily convert to the international market, right? Because वो ज़्यादा mature है, उनकी requirements अलग हैं.
I think the answer lies in your first few months. The answer lies is pre-funding.
Okay.
The answer lies in the fact that you need to be better. You need to research better on day zero, and go to market when you have a product where there is a high quality client, even if he's one client on day zero. That's the best way to play it. So take your time building a product which is internationally acceptable. If you want to take it 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, that's okay, because it will save you from a lot of repivoting, repositioning, roadmap adjusting midway in your journey. So that's something that you should do soon. The other thing that you should do better once you raise your first round is that don't throw in your money to, as soon as you get the money, you shouldn't assume that this is validation for your product.
True.
Yeah. True. Many people think, अरे इसने पैसा डाला है, अपना product मतलब hit है, client भी बन रहे हैं, investor भी आ गया है, चलो जी 20 people sales team, 20 people support team, and the product is still getting built. It's not really there yet. There are some people who like the minimum use case, but you haven't really tested the upgrades. You don't really have a marquee client. I mean, there are some good clients, but you don't really have the bigger fish yet. So even if you raise early, take your time to first. Don't start spending your money too early on things that you can do a year later also. Try to get the product right from the fattest check that you can get on a consistent basis.
Wait, profitability and actual money coming in rather than valuation, because I think ये एक romanticization of valuation जो
ये
है.
profitability में भी देखते वक्त ना, it's important to see what kind of revenue are you getting. I mean,
हाँ.
are you getting, is someone paying you, let's say, $10,000 a month as subscription fee, but paying you 20 lakh rupees this year, for which you have to spend 6 months just to give him that customization and put all your roadmap on. So you have to be careful. A lot of things. I mean, you should be looking at profitability from a purely SaaS business alone. Even in that early days, when you're looking at your product market fit and your early traction and judging it, you should look at the quality of revenues. I mean, even a chaiwala is earning a profit, right? Every chaiwala earns a profit, and the biggest companies, Uber doesn't make a profit. Right. So what is valuable?
There's this saying, right? कि define your country not just by the client you service, but define your country also by the client you don't service. So there are limiting the people you are not going to cater to. Saying no is very important.
Saying no is very important. But Indian SME market की reality ये है कि अगर आप बड़े ERP लेके बड़े client के पास जा रहे हो मोटे product के लिए, trying to charge a decent sum month on month, वो customization तो मांगेगा ही, थोड़ी बहुत तो मांगेगा ही कुछ ना कुछ. So then you have to sometimes sell even a feature as a customization. तो आपको पता है यार मैं logo लगा दूंगा, I have an interface for it, या मैं ये tweak दे दूंगा, ये color change कर दूंगा, या मैं ये this is a small feature upgrade, this is 3 days task, we'll show it like एक महीने का काम है सर, ठीक है आपके लिए customization करके दे देंगे, but keep those clients happy like that. But at the end of the day, fundamentally you are going to put all your resources behind someone's whims and fancies. At some stage you should always realize who's driving the vision here, and who are you building for. Don't become a software service company, because it's so easy to become a software service company.
So let's just pivot for a minute, and I just wanted to know what are the common mistakes that maybe you made or maybe you see other people making in building up a business. So what would some of those learnings be?
Among tons of mistakes I've done, I think one of the big ones would be a day where I don't think, and I made that mistake, and I came from an investing background, was that I did not size the market well enough early in our journey. That was one. I was looking at price points of international products and the value the product inherently brought in, but I was not sizing up the impact of the differential versus the value differential versus the price differential that we were aiming for. So in tough markets, that price differentials, you have to have significant value differential for a small price differential. So I did not judge that accurately. I think Kunal Shah also said something like this, the concept of Delta 4, where he says that if the existing incumbent, on a scale of 1 to 10, the consumer rating for him is a 2 out of 10, then for someone else to take away market share or to disrupt that market, his experience needs to be at least a Delta of 4, so at least a 6 out of 10. So the example he takes is IRCTC versus Make My Trip, or buying a shirt in a mall versus a Myntra.com. I mean, which one would you qualify as a disruption for which a significant customer value is on offer, for which someone would pay an extra? So there are similar themes.
So again,
I did not.
strategy
I did not think carefully. I did not think carefully about it. I did not think carefully. I only went on passion. कि यार ये तो बन जाएगा, ये तो बना लेंगे. वो कंपनी तो 100 मिलियन में बिक गई, उसके पास तो ये फीचर्स है ही नहीं. मेरे को पता है, मैं इंडिया में अकेला यूजर हूँ इसका. वो कंपनी तो वो वाली कंपनी 100 मिलियन की. This is such a thin scale product, such a thin MVP, small scale product. So one gets carried away by passion only many times. So I heard some people say that you should always, between fail fast and plan better, just plan better. Take your time. Don't just rush in. Yeah. So I'm trying to plan better this time. So this is one big learning. And there are many learnings, other learnings here. I'm trying to see what's the best way to verbalize them. I think whenever you're setting up a team, I think that's one of the points that you were talking about when you're early entrepreneur. experience when you were bunch of three friends coming together. It is very important on day zero to appoint someone there to have the know between the three who's the guy taking the call when it comes to product roadmap or strategic decisions or M&A matters. If you can document it, even better. Because so that's a big learning.
Isn't that a very tough conversation though? That's a very tough thing. Like when we were doing it with friends.
It's if you can't have it now, you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment later, one way or the other.
So because much better to have the tough conversation in the beginning.
Have that conversation first. Yeah.
Cool. Let me just go to some rapid fire questions to close the conversation. Favorite book?
Favorite book? So recently I read Blitzscaling. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. I think it's a must read for anyone, any entrepreneur.
Why?
That is one. So he gives you insights on the vacuum in which they were taking decisions and how basically how it is like working in an environment where you are creating a whole new category, burning millions of dollars, and dealing with such massive customer engagement. What it is like to be inside, and how do you make those decisions, and how few people are in such circumstances, around you making those decisions. So it's just such an interesting read. Just to know how he thinks about things and how they thought about things at LinkedIn when they were scaling. And also PayPal. I think he covers PayPal also a lot in that book. I think he's also a member of the initial PayPal mafia, Reid Hoffman himself.
Who isn't?
That is one. Yeah, the big shots are. And then there was this recently, he's an IMB alumni called Sangeet Paul Chaudhary.
Okay.
He is now, I think, amongst the Forbes 30 under 30 thinkers or something like that. And he's written a book called Platform Revolution.
Okay.
So that book has really opened up my thought process in terms of thinking about businesses, thinking about network effects in businesses early. So it's one of the big learnings I have had in my previous startup, that if you don't think about network effects early, then basically you are just a salesman trying to deal with CAC and LTV and MRRs. You cannot have exponential growth if you're thinking of a business like a pipeline, where essentially, basically, what he says, and SaaS, it's an easy pitfall for any SaaS company to fall into. That you think like a traditional businessman कि मैंने माल बनाया, मैंने माल बेचा, मैंने कस्टमर को खुश किया, कस्टमर को तकलीफ आई तो मैंने उसकी तकलीफ सॉल्व करी, तो कस्टमर मुझे पैसे दे रहा है और वो मेरे बारे में 10 लोगों को बता रहा है. So you are trying to own every chain of the execution. You're trying to make it yourself. You're trying to support it yourself, distribute it yourself, and you're creating a pipeline. But platform businesses essentially work differently. You are enabling businesses to work on platforms, and you're basically just a platform curator, and enabling interaction and helping people succeed on your platform. And you're basically just enabling feedback loops, etc. So it's a fresh new way to think about platforms, because when you're looking at an Airbnb from outside or an Uber from outside, you can't really put your finger on it. This is how you scale, or this is what it is. But that book offers a very good syntax on how to think about pipelines versus platforms.
There's actually now Ben Thompson karke hai. He writes this newsletter called Strategy, and he's written about platforms. I think that, and he talks about platforms versus aggregators. That's a very interesting read. I think that's what you're talking about, perhaps. That platforms are basically businesses to which other businesses attach themselves and end up, depending on, and that creates a virtuous cycle. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A virtuous network effect, and it gets better with every additional member of the supply side or the demand side. And those platforms are then the toughest to sort of disrupt.
Okay. Favorite quote? Sorry, go ahead.
Favorite quote?
Quote, if you have one.
Go ahead. Favorite quote? For some reason, something that came to mind recently, I saw it on Twitter somewhere again, and I read it earlier. I think there's inside Microsoft there is a quote that is very popular. It's called "Ship fast, ship frequently," something like that. That was a very interesting quote. So that I feel is very very true. I mean, the moment your tech team stops shipping or stops iterating, that sort of should that's not a good thing to happen. Other related quote to that was if and I heard someone say this. I don't know who this was, but recently again I came across this. Was if you are trying to get your MVP perfect before you ship it, then
it's
you
already
are
too late. Yeah. No, that's very interesting. I think that's very very true. Okay. Favorite business personality? I think. Do you have a person you look up to, you listen to more?
So a couple of the famous ones on YouTube, Kunal Shah, etc. They always get your attention. Of Naval Ravikant's podcast, very very deep insights.
Very deep insights.
Yeah. Some reason Joe Rogan keeps popping on my YouTube list these days quite a lot.
That's because Spotify gave him $100 million. And sare podcast wale are like, bhaiya, podcast is the best business ever.
So that's why these starting crux, huh?
Let's hope that's not the reason. I can only say that. Let's hope that's not the reason. Okay. The best advice you got. And you can name the person, whoever gave you that advice.
Advice I got. I was somehow, and I don't even remember that person. So my sister, somehow it comes back to my memory every few years. I had just left my job, and I was I had started sitting at the property, and my elder sister was getting married, and I think there's someone from my brother-in-law side of the family who met me, introduced himself. I have never met him again in my life, and he said, "Great बेटा, तुम ये कर रहे हो ना? एक advice मैं दूंगा, गद्दी पकड़ लो और इस गद्दी को छोड़ना मत." So आपका मतलब क्या है इसका? But I think what he meant was that you basically, when he saw me sort of turn it around and take ownership of the property, I think what he said was try to own the problem. I think that's what he was trying to hint at. He said, take your time, sit down, own the problem, and don't let it go. Something like that he was alluding to. I thought it was very cool advice because it came from a very learned guy. The other was recently, somehow I gravitate towards very old men when I look for advice. And I heard this guy called, I think he's the CEO of Shree Cement or Bangar Cement or one of the cement companies, and he was doing a talk, and he's a 60, 70, 80-year-old. I don't even remember why I was listening to it, I think. But he said something, one of the reasons why people don't sell their businesses in India is कि जब वो पैसे धंधा बेच देते हैं तो विजिटिंग कार्ड में उनको समझ नहीं आता है क्या लिखें क्योंकि नेटवर्क अपने बैंक अकाउंट बैलेंस तो लिख नहीं सकते. So that's why he was talking about why people don't sell in India.
That's a very good problem.
They're happy saying I am CEO of this company, but they don't, because it becomes a prestige thing for them.
No, it's very true, because I know a lot of people, and I think some of my people I talk to don't like me. That's why, because अगर मैं उनके business के बारे में पूछता हूँ, I think we end up getting convinced that this business should not exist, and they're like, फिर मैं लेकिन मैं करूँगा क्या?
They're happy just going to office and
हाँ कि कुछ करने को है. हाँ, क्योंकि then you realize कि actually the income is coming from the property that business owns. So if you replace that business and just rent out that property, that business would earn more money, and that's a very depressing thought for a lot of people.
Possible.
True. Okay, what is the worst advice that is going around, which you are like, this is so wrong? इससे बहुत लोग फंसेंगे.
Whenever I hear, I don't know if it's advice, but कि ये Uber और Airbnb और वाले जब आते हैं तो मेरे को बड़ा दुख होता है कि यार ये क्या, I am the Airbnb of this or Uber of that. वो वालों में दुख होता है, but advice, I don't know. bad advice. Doesn't come to mind immediately.
एक तो मेरे को लग रहा है follow your passion ही, कि just blindly following your passion is advice
हाँ,
that you believe that is
हाँ
wrong.
कि वो बस हाँ पैशन ओनली कि बस देख लेंगे कर लेंगे. अब हम लोग वो बैड एडवाइस है. आई थिंक you should take your time. You should plan better. And if you are and you should, and I think I heard Naval Ravikant himself say this in one of his podcasts. Ki whenever he has made a decision, he has this rule for himself that he gives himself another 24 hours to see if he has changed his thought process.
Sleeping on it
for at least 24 hours.
Fair. Last question. What has been the most important moment in your business entrepreneurial journey for you?
I think for me, taking a step back from active operations of Jubo, letting my co-founder go ahead with what he wanted to do in terms of the road ahead, and was an important moment for me because while it is a difficult call to take because it's a baby that you've practically created out of your living room, I now look at it as a great gift that I gave myself also, because it gave me time to pick up a project which was a new construction project, which I was delaying for many years. And the fact that I'm in my mid 30s and I have lived the journey of one turnaround and one VC funded company which has had buyout offers. I think this is a very interesting time in my life where it's almost like something I heard someone say recently, saying that you are trying to scale the Everest. You've reached a stage where you can see the peak, but you also realize that you've taken the wrong path.
ये भी नवल रविकांत ने बोला है.
ये उसी ने बोला है सर.
हाँ.
So you have to climb back and climb up again.
हाँ.
It's almost like that.
True.
It's almost like that. It feels like that. So this moment, last few months have been very poignant, very profound for me personally. So very important moments.
Sometimes climbing down to climb up is equally important. एक वो bullheadedness is good, but it's not always the best thing. You need to find the right path. True. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Tarun. Thank you for taking the time.
Great. You're welcome.
And it's been amazing talking to you.